Call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the City Council committee as a whole. This evening, I want to ask if you call the roll, please.
Councilman Brightwell.
Here.
Councilman Capassi.
Here.
Councilman Frazier is excused for this evening. Councilwoman Morris. Here. Councilman Mandelbaum.
Here.
Councilwoman Seymour. Present. Councilman Cruz.
Present.
We have 6 members present.
Thank you. We have 5 items to discuss this evening. Doesn't look like a very long agenda, but we do. There's a lot of information to be covered tonight, so sit tight. First, we'll start off with our first item, which is the approval of the contract with Walmart stores for police services. Greg?
Our Police Chief Eric Hawkins is going to speak to this item.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, city officials, and members of the community. I'm here this evening to ask Council to authorize Council to request that Council authorizes the Mayor and the City Clerk to enter into a contract with Sam's Club, which is owned by Walmart, for police services. And just to go back and give you a background on what this is all about, back in June of 2015, the police department was approached by Sam's Club on 8 Mile. And they wanted to talk about some challenges that they have down in that area, some security challenges. And we talked about it. We talked about how we can increase our police presence in that area. We talked about what kind of sacrifices they could make to help us help them. And eventually what we came to was an agreement whereby we would assign police officers, 1 police officer every day during business hours at the store down in that area. And the agreement called for them to reimburse the city of Southfield for all costs associated with that officer being at that location. Costs meaning the overtime, the workers' comp, and retirement. And the way we looked at it was a very, very intriguing possibility for us. We noticed that there were other cities that had similar arrangements with establishments that had that were in challenging areas, and so we looked at this, and it would not entail any reduction in services to the rest of the city of Southfield, because that officer that would be assigned to that area would be assigned on an overtime basis. And so we did this for about 6 months or so, and during that period of time we were reimbursed per the agreement that we had with Walmart, and it worked out well. During that period of time, for the 16 months prior to this agreement that we had with Sam's Club, we averaged 3 incidents per month at that Sam's Club on 8 Mile. For the 7 or 8 months after the agreement, we still averaged 3 incidents per month at that Sam's Club, but here's the difference. Prior to, we were seeing not major incidents, but most of the incidents at the Sam's Club were out in the parking lot. They were cars being broken into, purse snatchings, cars being left on blocks. In the 7 months after we went into this agreement with Sam's Club, having that officer down there, those incidents were almost all of them were financial transaction type crimes, fraud, and the occasional retail fraud. So what we saw after this is that we eliminated pretty much all of the crimes that we were seeing in that parking lot in that area down there. And it allowed folks who were coming to visit Southfield, who were coming to shop at Sam's Club, feel a lot safer. Because when you have a crime, when you're a victim of a crime in a parking lot in an establishment, it doesn't just affect that person who was victimized, but they go tell 5 or 6 or 7 other people also. When we have some of the credit card type issues, it doesn't have that wide-ranging impact. So we saw this as being a very, very successful partnership, a very innovative partnership, and so we're coming to Council tonight to request that Council authorize the City Clerk and the Mayor to enter into a formal contract with Sam's Club to have an officer assigned at that location on an overtime basis during business hours, 7 days a week, at full cost recovery. We've already discussed this with our financial services director to ensure that we are getting full cost recovery for this. We've discussed it with our legal department to ensure that the contractual agreement that we get into with this establishment is one that is favorable to the city. So I'm here to answer any questions that council may have regarding that this request.
Mr. Mandelbaum.
The police officer that's assigned, are they using one of our vehicles, a marked police car?
Yes, they will be using a marked police car. For officer presence purposes will be parked in the parking lot. And some of you all may have been down there recently and you may have seen a police car that's stationary in that parking lot. It will be parked there, officer in full uniform, officer going in and outside the establishment. And also to expand a little bit on that, the officer that's assigned to that location by contract is allowed to leave that location and assist other officers if there's any other major incident in the city. So what this does is gives us this fixed presence in this area, but also at no cost to us, it gives us an extra officer to assist if we have major incidents that occur in the city, any place in the city.
If something happens to that vehicle, is that built into the contract where we would be reimbursed for whatever repairs would be needed or anything that we would need?
No, I'll let Sue Ward answer.
You know, that contract I looked at a while ago, it's probably an issue we can have Lynn look at, again, to see whether all of our costs are included. Obviously, those vehicles are all insured with our, so it isn't like we would have to put out money because they're all insured, but there may be a deductible or something. I mean, it's been so long since I looked at it, but I think we could have Lynn look at it, just to see if that is included in the cost reimbursement.
In determining the hourly rate, there was an 8% overhead charge added to that. I would need to get into how we came up with 8%, but that was added in addition to our actual wages, FICA, Social Security, the healthcare. There was an overhead charge rolled in there as well. And a more global thing aside from this, our financial services group is looking at our total indirect cost recoveries, and we've engaged a company called Maximus to assist us with that. But we won't see it in this year's budgets, but a year from now within our budgets, we'll see more of the hidden indirect costs within each of the budgets that in certain cases have historically just been lost to central services, the risk insurance fund, so more facility services, more of the centralized accounting will be daylighted in the future. But for purposes of doing this, we did add an 8% overhead charge.
Okay. Then the other question is, the officer that's assigned, obviously it's someone who's not working during that time frame, but it rotates and officers do they sign up? Are they assigned? How does that aspect work?
Yes, it's rotational with overtime, equitable distribution of overtime, the way we assign it. So we look at it's open to any non-sworn officer or detective or specialist, and we look at how many hours they've worked before, and then based on how many hours they've worked, it determines whether or not they're eligible for that particular day.
Okay. Mr. Brightwood?
I think already covered, of course, but Fred, with respect to the 8%, is that pretty much the handling fee to processing all this for the officer? Is that what the intent of the 8%?
We really didn't have an indirect cost recovery for this type of activity, but I would argue that there are a couple other benefits to the community. One, having a national retailer on 8 Mile
Sure.
is one, and I think we've heard things through the years regarding the Home Depot and shrinkage. And this is really about Sam's Club presenting themselves as safe to the community and as a viable retail along that borderline. You know, and I think of the challenges that we had and some things we heard about Target, which I somewhat discount because only a year ago, they had expanded their grocery store in that location. But they were citing shrinkage and panhandling as one of the issues. You know, so we really don't have within the organization, when we do something like this, I don't have a cost model. And that's what, you know, working with Maximus, we're trying to get a better handle on. You know, for example, what does it cost us to issue a payroll check for the library or Parks and Rec, or, you know, process their bills? You know, we've had these formulas that were put together when, I think they were put together back in the 90s. They need to be re-examined to the volume that's being handled today, fewer employees and such.
Okay.
So it was a number we felt safe to use.
All right.
So, and we wanted to make this deal work too. You know, just as the chief has said, if something goes wrong, we actually, without having the full cost of another officer, have another officer available in the community.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Lewis?
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, what would be the duration of the agreement?
There's no end date, but there's a, I believe it's a 30-day out clause.
60 days.
60, okay.
Well, let me, I read it this morning, I'm sorry.
Where either party could terminate the contract.
30 days.
So no end date on the agreement, but 60 days out clause.
Is it 30 days, Fred, or?
1 day.
Yeah, so it goes until either side terminates it.
Oh, okay. If there were ever any other officers deployed to that location, would Walmart pay for them, or how does that work?
No, not any other additional officers. So if we have any incident there, the officers that's assigned at the location would be covered by the contract in terms of the reimbursement. But any other additional officers would be just like any other incident that we would have in our city, that where officers would have to respond.
Mayor Sarver?
Yeah, pretty much been touched on. I'm glad to hear it's an 8%, because we discussed this at Council of Presidents, that besides the police officer, there's gasoline for the car, there's finance department, there's the legal department involved, and it should be full cost recovery, as we're doing this sort of as a favor. I mean, and I support it, but it should be full cost recovery, and there are always those other costs as people are processing payments, billing, contracts, all of that. So, thank you. I'm glad to hear that was added.
Yeah, it says Sam's Club offered to fully reimburse the city for all overtime costs associated with the assignments of the officer. I think outside of the automobile question that arose, I'm ready to move Rule 10.
Is there any other
Change.
discussion on this matter before we move forward? Okay.
Support.
Mr. Perkowski's moved Rule 10, supported by Mr. Mandelbaum. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the resolution that is accompanied in this letter of February 8th be approved, and that this would be a one-year period effective February 9th, 2016, and that the city attorney approve this contract, and also to see whether or not there's a liability on the automobile as you do that.
Will do.
Support.
That was made as a motion here, so if we want to been properly moved and seconded, can we just can I get clarity once again just on what exactly you got down as part of what his motion was asking for?
Yeah.
Sure, you want me to read it?
Can you say one more
Sure.
time?
The council authorized the mayor and city clerk to sign the contract with Walmart Stores, Inc., a Delaware corporation, on behalf of the city after review and approval as performed by the city attorney's office and fiscal services director for a one-year period effective February 9th, 2016, and also take in effect but the item that came up regarding the car seat about the liability.
It's been properly moved and properly seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Thank you.
The only clarification is it 1 year or is it until someone terminates?
Well, you've given a 1-year approval, so if they want to continue after that, or as we're moving, they're gonna have to come back to you at this point. So you'll have a history of a year to see how it's worked, even though the contract will insert in there for it's a 1-year period.
All right, very good. Moving on to our next topic, it's going to be a discussion on artwork, art installations, actually on Evergreen Road. Okay, so it's going to be that one.
No. Yeah, we're working on it.
Can you all see this, or do you need we're going to talk specifically about considering the placement of art in our roundabouts on Evergreen Road, but I wanted to give a little bit of a historical background on traffic circles and art and monuments in civic spaces. This is from my hometown, Buffalo, New York. Buffalo was the first city that was laid out as a master plan greenway by Frederick Law Olmsted, the father of landscape architecture and the one who designed Central Park, among other things, including Belle Isle. And he laid out these radials of green space and boulevards with these traffic circles before the automobile was even invented. And they've over time become civic places of pride, and they become place names. People will say, "I'll meet you at Gates Circle," or "I'll meet you at the so-and-so Ferry Street Circle," and they become the vernacular of the city of Buffalo. Historic postcards of the fountains in the roundabout, the McKinley Monument in downtown, and Ferry Street Circle is a little more subdued. Some of them actually have traditional sculptures like Civil War sculptures. Others are just landscape features with some lighting. Some are more prominent than others and have become beacons for the radial streets from miles in each direction. And here, you know, I like to show this, that they're more than just a green space with arrows saying go this way. They actually become passive parks and public spaces where people go in and read and check the internet and just enjoy the space. And you can see that they're prominent along these mature landscape boulevards, similar to what we've recently installed on Evergreen Road. Moving to Seattle, we have more whimsical art that has been installed, and each one of these pieces have been installed either in the right-of-way or adjacent to a major street. This flower part is right in downtown Seattle, right adjacent to the convention center. This old typewriter eraser is along the waterfront in the Olympic Sculpture Park. And this is an umbrella that's actually comes out of a small median in a residential area of the city. Here's an example of a large sculpture in a roundabout in Addison, Texas. And then recently, our city attorney was traveling to San Antonio, Texas, and she saw this piece, and you could see the scale of this compared to the car. And this roundabout's probably about half the size of the ones that we have at Evergreen Road. So focusing on potential art installations on Evergreen, we chose the southern roundabout at Civic Center in Evergreen with north facing this way. And came up with a landscape design with a pedestal just off center that picks up the views. This can become a beacon from a half a mile in every direction, and can become a gateway and a place name for people coming into the municipal complex. And the reason it's centered just off center is the Sun pipeline goes right through, and we have to maintain that 7-foot easement. Here's an example from ground view where the The traffic circle would be elevated approximately 5 feet, a 3-foot pedestal. So from eye level, it'd be about 8 feet above person walking on either side of Evergreen Road. And this monument would be faced with the same limestone that the new digital sign in front of the library and the library stone, so it ties in with the municipal campus. And this is the gratitude that the city accepted last year as a piece, which is 16 feet high. So overall, you would have almost 21 feet of height as a beacon. Again, in each direction. You could see that from Northwestern Highway, from 10 Mile as you come north, and from the I-696 service drive as you come south, and then the municipal campus as you come out. So here's an existing photo from eye level. I'm actually standing in the median as I'm crossing on the south side of the roundabout looking north. Here's the library. And this is just a conceptual rendering of what it would look like in place with a full mature landscape. It's mounted up. You would still see the pedestal, and then whatever sculpture that we ultimately choose would extend up from there. This is looking, as you're exiting the south entrance of the municipal campus, looking towards Civic Center, down towards Northwestern Highway, 5,000 tower here, existing, and here is proposed. Now, as far as the north roundabout, I think Councilman Fracassi came up with a good idea that everybody liked about having a contest. Get some publicity, put out there to the public, similar to what we did with the calendar. We had people submit photos, and then the top 10 were voted on, and then a selection committee decided what went in the calendar. We propose having a similar competition, whether it's available pieces that we have or other pieces that people are aware of. Submit their ideas, post it for a certain period, have the residents vote on it, and then it would go to the Arts Commission for recommendation and ultimately back to the City Council for installation. So we'd like to take a kind of a two-pronged approach. We have a piece of art that's been donated. We have some other pieces that we're moving towards fundraising campaigns to get installed. And we're just looking for consensus tonight, that if there's a consensus to move forward, then we would come back with either an actual bid, cost estimates, funding sources before anything gets done. But we'd like, if there's at least an idea of moving forward in that direction, then we would investigate it to the next step.
All right, Mr. Playwood.
Jared, I'm all for art, and I like this idea of putting it forward and utilizing the space. But from a safety standpoint, would this interfere with the driver's field of vision?
No. And again, we'll go back to this. First of all, whenever we come to a corner, we require 25-foot triangle corner clearance. You can't obstruct from above 30 inches up to 7 feet. That's got to be a clear vision zone. In this particular case, we have a wide apron, for lack of a better term, that was built in here for large vehicles turning radius. Since this is not an intersection and people are coming only from one direction, the eye view of the driver, so someone who's stopped here waiting for the clearance of the traffic circle, is always going to be faced in this direction looking left only. So they're never looking through the intersection for oncoming traffic. They're always going to be looking, regardless of what direction you come in, they're always looking left to traffic that's merging on this side of the sculpture.
You're also moving your car, you're steering your car away from the circle. As you can see from the bend in the road.
So it meets both the clear vision zone and the practicality of the way these operate. You would never have your eyesight obstructed, and it would be designed to be that way.
Seymour?
I have a concern about something being a distraction. I think it needs to be something traditional that blends with the design. You know, this this piece that was donated, this gratitude, is very hard-edged, and I think it's gonna be a distraction. People are gonna look at it and say, what is that? I would like to see something more traditional that doesn't distract people. And that's what, I think there's a time and place for that sculpture. I don't think that's the place. I think it needs to be something that does not distract people, but just adds beauty to the site. So that's my concern about that particular piece, because we need two sites, so they should be related in some way. That's basically it.
Yeah. I think that, when we were talking about the ordinance, I stated that I don't think that any memorial should be in the city rights of way. And the piece of art that is being discussed and shown, seems like it's already been picked to be in that roundabout. And I really object to that, because that particular art belonged to a person who serves on the commission. The process that has been used in the past by the former arts group had a great idea, in that it maybe took a little work, but they had a contest to see what art would be placed there by competition. And some of the new members, this arts council and the arts in the city is in no way new to the city. I mean, we had our librarian head up a commission that was made up of residents in our city. And Jean Hollander was very involved in it, a councilwoman's wife. And we had fairs and artwork on this campus that, we had 100,000 people on this site going through and looking at art. And we had the largest Sunday at the pool that was hit the Guinness World Records. I mean, we did things in a big way. We had an outdoor arts exhibit. We have Marshall Fredericks, who put artwork in our lobby. And so I respect the commission that we presently have. I just think that the way it began, I think, was kind of off track, in that arts are more than just sculptures. Arts should be everything. We had the DIA having artwork out here with their paintings in portraits or whatever paintings in the summertime. But we had in our library, just for information, a person with the Parks and Recreation that was head of the arts, staff person. And we even bought the Bené David for a arts facility. And we were going to have arts apartments, people who are artists that would do it. And the artwork was going to be on all the office buildings between the interchange and 10 Mile Road. In front of the office buildings, people are going to be asked to put artwork out in front to make it an art corridor. So I just say that because, and I don't want to take away from the gentleman that has this art and donated it to the city, but I think that the artwork, its location and placement, belongs to the city council and all the right-of-ways. And I don't really want to get into it, because the gentleman and his wife were very instrumental in us becoming an all-America city. And I give them the full gratitude, myself and the city, in working towards that end. It was a lot of work, and it was a prestigious thing that we were awarded. But in the minutes of the commission, it really bothered me, and I was kind of, didn't care one way or the other, but when the person asked the children what color to paint the product that's going to be placed there. I said, this is a family thing and not an individual just giving us something. It had strings attached, not just to the city, but also to the family. And I just think that we get into a series of problems when that happens. If it was in a competition and they awarded it in the competition, fine and dandy. But I just think that somebody gives you a piece of artwork and puts it into a right of way of the city, that's a big thing. It's a very big thing, and it should be slighted. That's my comments.
Mr. Mandelbaum.
Couple questions. Whatever we put there, is there gonna, if it's the sculpture you showed or something else, will there be, you mentioned out of the sunlight, but will it still give off a glare that could, even though drivers aren't necessarily going towards it, are turning their cars away from it, is there that potential for glare?
Well, the process, regardless of what color we put it on, is a powder coated. So it's not a shiny reflective. It's similar to what playground equipment is. It's baked on, it's thicker, so it holds up better. It's not a shiny material. And if, again, I prefaced with some of these others that have been, are around for 150 years. And then the more whimsical ones have been around for 40 or 50 years. These are all in similar elements. They're in right of way or could possibly be distractions. And we certainly are going to design it to be as safe as possible. But I don't think, regardless if it's this piece or some other piece, I think it should be vertical, and so that you can see it from a distance. It shouldn't be a smaller, flatter, horizontal piece. It should be a vertical piece.
And I know when we talked about this a couple months ago, we said whatever pedestal you build for it would be more, I don't want to say breakaway, but in case someone does drive
Well,
their car
this
through.
is remember the elevation. This is designed 8 feet high, and it's well within the guidelines for breakaway. If it was closer to the edge, it would have to be designed that way. I mean, this is going to be a concrete pedestal that's going to be faced with limestone. And this is going to be no different than our electronic sign that's probably closer to the street than this is raised 8 feet. So it certainly would take the impact a lot better.
And the last question I had, has this been vetted through the Arts Commission and the City Center Advisory Board?
Yes, and that's why this is a recommendation through the Arts Commission, and the City Center has at least, we've shown this before, but they've allocated funding for the installation of art. Now, those are both just recommending bodies, and ultimately that's why we're here with council. And this is just to say, can we move forward with getting cost estimates and identifying funding, and then come back to council for, final approval. So this is still exploratory.
But the City Center hasn't seen this, a particular piece, or made a recommendation on a particular piece?
I'd have to check my notes. I'm pretty sure I showed this in its previous incarnation, not with the updated. But
Okay.
we have our City Center board meeting tomorrow, and it depends on what happens tonight. I can give them an update on it.
Okay.
And we have our Arts Commission meeting next Tuesday. So there's been previous support for this,
Right.
but not at the council level. And for various reasons, it was all put on hold last year. So just thought it'd be a good opportunity to bring it back for discussion, especially with some new council members.
Seymour?
Thank you. Is this the name Gratitude, this sculpture? Is that
This
the name of
particular
it?
piece, yes.
The thing that bothers me about that is it is a monument. This is a piece that was, well, two things bother me. This is a monument to the deceased wife, ex-wife of the artist. I think the two circles should have pieces that are similar. They don't have to look the same, but they ought to have the same sense, the same thing. Whether it's more traditional, just something that relates them, whether it be material. This is, to me, it's a monument to his ex-wife. And it's very distracting. I'm not saying we shouldn't put it somewhere nice in the park, but I don't think that's the right place. It just doesn't fit in with the softness and the curves, and that's my opinion. I just don't think it fits in, and I come from a long line of artists and art gallery. I do, seriously, 30 years of experience, so I do know what I'm talking about.
I'm not sure whether it's appropriate. I'd like to just make a motion that we accept the concept and go forward with what they're asking for, which is the estimates, and not necessarily picking a piece of art. That's what we're not here tonight for. Let me just make a motion, and I'd like to see this. I make a motion to go forward with the planning process.
All right, so we were just seeking to have consensus on it today. Do we need to take a formal vote, or is there anyone opposed to this, at least moving forward to the,
I want to know what the motion is.
to move this item to next regularly scheduled meeting?
No, actually, all I'm asking for is if there's consensus, the staff can spend some time investigating cost and scheduling for moving forward with this.
For what?
For an installation of
For
a piece of art.
installation of artwork?
In the center, because regardless if this piece gets put here or not, there's work that needs to be done to shape the island and put the pedestal in for future art installation, and there's going to be a cost attributed to that.
Yeah.
We have to identify funding.
Yeah. So you're not
Yes.
talking about what art piece is going there?
Not at this
Because
time.
in your presentation, Jerry, to be honest with you, you assume that that is going there,
Right.
and then for Cassie's suggestion is gonna go to the north end of the thing, and I don't want my opinion on either one of them. I think that the art commission ought to go and have a contest, and they know the size and where it's gonna go, and they have a contest, and go out and pick some nice piece of art. If that makes it, God bless them. But I just know that,
Yeah.
that I just have real strong feelings about this, that, you know, we had, and, you know, I guess I've been around too long, but I mean, we've had people come in here with 5, 6, 7 paintings to council, and they write them off, and we accept them, and they put them all around the buildings here. I don't know, someone stole them all, you know, but, I mean, and that was great. The guy got the write-off, and all these paintings disappeared. We had them out here in the lobby and down the hallways and everywhere else, in the library. And I just think that the it's got to have more prestigious part of the city displayed.
You gotta have a
If I can
competition.
say it that way.
Well, that was part of what I was suggesting, that we have a competition.
I think so.
But we also, and again, that's why it's discussion purposes. We do have this piece that was donated and was accepted by the city. Of all the pieces that we currently have in our inventory, this one lends itself the best for being placed in a roundabout because of its verticality, and you can see it from a
But Jerry, we
distance.
didn't go out and advertise to the general public and to all the artists that would like to have their artwork in the front of City Hall in a roundabout, and have the designation that their piece of art was picked and is in a prestigious location. And that's what I'm saying, is that it should be slightly somebody given. You know, it's only one. What other art pieces do you have in your collections?
Well, we
You know,
have,
not that many that would fit.
right,
into
well, we
that
have 8 or
situation.
10 pieces that were acquired through Northland
Yeah, well.
Mall, and then there's some existing pieces. And again, I'm using this as an example that came as a recommendation for
Okay.
discussion purposes.
Well, can we get, because we're not choosing art tonight. That's not the purpose of why we're here. I think, whatever is appropriate Robert's Rules of Order, I think to answer your question with respect to this sheet of paper, move forward with what's on here, and at a given date, when a piece of art comes up, we can find a full discussion. I think we're off track tonight with respect to what's on this piece of paper. So, Mr. President, I would like to just, I don't know what Robert's Rules of Order process is, make a motion that we move on.
What's, Terry, you're asking
I
us.
just wanted clarification of
Right.
the motion is what I
Right,
said.
because what you need
I
us,
didn't
what you
hear
need from us today to move forward
Well,
is
I
just approval.
consensus.
just a
I'm not,
consensus.
I don't think, not asking for any formal action. It's just, if staff and others are gonna spend some time investigating this, we just wanna know there's at least consensus on the council to go to that next step before we come back. And that's what I'm looking for
What is the
tonight.
next step? What are you saying?
Coming back with some cost estimates and flushing this out a little bit further. Then we can decide what approach we wanna do as far as if it's this piece, a different piece, or competition, or something completely different.
Yeah, all right, do we have consensus with Terry to move forward with that? I mean, I think we all agree we're gonna put something there eventually. So at least this preliminary gets things started, so when the time comes to decide what's going there, we'll be moving forward on this matter. As long as there's no objections to that, Terry.
And I'd like to just say, there's a piece of artwork on Woodward, just north of Maple. It kind of looks similar to that. I think it's red and it's not shiny. And I've driven past there many times where I haven't had any problems with my vehicle. But if you guys want to take a drive past there just to see, you know, an actual tangible piece of artwork.
We also have the Kamau robot that we put on
On
the
the
telegraph.
yeah.
Mayor, sorry,
I just want to set the record straight about this piece. This is a piece that Skip Davis purchased for his home. He no longer wants it. It had nothing to do with his deceased wife, Barbara. You are totally incorrect, Joan, about
We were
that.
told that.
You're incorrect, and I told Skip to stay home tonight, but if he were here, he would tell you that he purchased it. It had nothing to do with his wife Barbara. The only thing that has to do with Barbara, when she died, people donated $8,000 some to an art fund to pay for installation of art in the city.
He wasn't the artist.
No, he didn't design it.
All right, well, I.
He bought it from a Detroit artist. His whole yard and house is like a museum, and it reflects 40 years of Detroit artist artwork. It's an incredible collection that he
At
has.
one point, we were told what I just said.
Well, I don't know where you got that, but I'm setting the record.
Council meeting.
I am setting the record straight. It is not a memorial to his wife. He did not design the piece, and he generously gave the piece to the city of Southfield.
I'm not saying we shouldn't put it up somewhere, I just don't think that's what it is.
I'm just setting the record straight on what you said. Well, then
But I
don't
know
repeat
what-
it again,
I-
please,
I know
because
what
this
you
is,
want
you,
at the
you've
meeting.
told that story
We
one
were
too many
told.
times.
We were told.
All right, now, Mr. Picasso.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want this to get personal. I just reflecting actually what's in the minutes of the meeting, Kenneth, Mr. Mayor. And it says that the request was made of the children what color they wanted painted.
Oh, the
Now, if there's
color,
not a
yeah.
personal, if there isn't a personal attachment to a piece of art that you're gonna be asking your family of what color you like to have it when it's put up or there, and so, and I don't wanna make it personal.
Well, that
Skip has
part
been
is
a
true.
friend,
The
him and Barbara
color
worked their
is-
butts off to make
is
it all
real.
America City, and I appreciate what you're doing, but that's what happens when you have a commission and you have people who are sitting on boards and they start getting personally involved in their own personal things that are driven to the city. And they should abstain from it. It's as much as I would abstain or you would abstain from something that would pertain to your living.
All right. I think we're ready to move on to our next item. Number 3, which is a presentation and discussion on the preliminary draft for Sustainable Southfield Master Plan.
Thank you. So as you may be aware, the city last adopted a master plan in April 2009. And we're required by state of Michigan through the Michigan Planning Enabling Act to do a 5-year update. That means that you should do a comprehensive review of your existing master plan and determine whether or not it should be amended or updated. We came back to the council in the beginning of 2014 to get approval to start the update of the master plan. Phase 1 included inventory analysis, so we went out and actually did windshield surveys of every property in the city to determine what the existing land uses are. We contacted all the departments and we got input from the departments on their various aspects. And then, as you recall, in January of 2015, we came back to the council to get authorized to move forward with the Mind Mixer social media update. And that was about a 20-week process, and I'll get into a little more details of that. And so over a course of 6 months, we received input from the public. And the last part of 2015, which was phase 3, we incorporated all the information that we collected for the past year and a half, and we prepared the preliminary draft plan that was presented to you on Friday. The next step, as part of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, is that we have to release this plan for a 63-day review period. We have to send it to all adjacent communities, including SEMCOG, Oakland County, and any registered utilities, and then let the public review it. But before we do that, we have to get your permission to review the preliminary draft. At the end of the 63-day review period, which takes us into May, the Planning Commission will hold a public hearing and take official public comment on the plan and make a recommendation to the City Council. And according to our timeline, it'll come back in June for further discussion and then hopefully adoption at your June 20th regular meeting. This is all consistent with the state Michigan Planning Enabling Act, as well as your redevelopment ready certification, when we provided our quarterly reports on where we were with the CIP, where we were with the ethics policy, where we were with other things. This schedule was outlined to the redevelopment ready certification group. Now, you hear this often now about sustainability. And sustainable communities are places that balance their economic assets, their natural resources, and social priorities so that residents' diverse needs can be met now and in the future. We've taken a holistic approach to land use planning that includes environmental, social, and economic sustainability. You've heard me in the past state that back in the day, companies would locate where the natural resources or the transportation networks, whether they be rivers, railroads, highways, or where natural resources such as coal, iron, and others. And then they'd create their factories and the workers would come from all over and relocate there close to the jobs. Today, what we're talking about is human resources. And our kids that graduate out of school today will go and relocate to cool cities like Chicago and New York and others because that's where they want to live and then look for a job. And the major corporations know this. Google spent $1 billion buying a block in New York City because they knew that's where the human capital, where the human resources wanted to be. And we lost a lot of our human capital during the recession. And companies are having a hard time finding engineers and young professionals, and they have to go out of state and relocate people back in. So we have to understand that we're in this global market of competition, and things are much different than they used to be. Sustainable Southfield will strive to incorporate the following 6 principles compiled from a review of leading comprehensive plans by American Planning Association Sustaining Places. A livable built environment, harmony with nature, resilient economy, interwoven equity, healthy community, responsible regionalism. When I first started out, planning had their own niche, and landscape architecture had a niche, and engineering had a niche, and health officials had a niche, and now everybody works together. To provide a healthy community, to provide an active community, you have to have a walkable community. You have to have a community that provides non-motorized transit. You have to have a community where the custodian can live and the doctor can live in the same community and share in the same cultural resources and have access to the same benefits. And the approach has been taken is to to not look at just traditional land use planning, but look at all the other elements that help make our community thriving and sustainable. And I'm just going to briefly go over the chapters with some themes. And chapter 2 is healthy living. Active living environments are places where all people are able and inspired to use their feet to get them places. They are places where people of all ages, incomes, and abilities can walk and bike both for recreation and for transportation. And this comes right from the Michigan Council on Physical Fitness, Health, and Sports. Land use decisions can affect whether we have access to healthy food choices, parks and green space, good homes, jobs, and schools. We want to create freedom of choice on how to get to those things. So if you choose, you want to continue to drive, you can do that. But if you want to have the option of walking, biking, or taking a bus, you can do that as well. Healthy living is about healthy community design from the site plan level to the broader level. Research has found that people living in communities marked by sprawling development were less likely to walk, weighed more, and were more likely to have high blood pressure. We talk about healthy foods and good nutrition. We talk about the effects of climate change and social capital. The fabric of a community and the community pool of human resources available to it are often called social capital. The new biomedical engineering facility that was sponsored by Taubman, it's being built at Lawrence Tech. They understand that. They've created spaces for creative collision. They don't want just kids being in a laboratory in a classroom. They've created spaces as they're changing classes or they're meeting on the steps that they can have conversations with each other. Our new office layout, instead of having people in separate cubes or offices, they put a bunch of young people around a conference table and they all work on their laptops, but it encourages interaction. It encourages brainstorming, it encourages innovation. And we have to think that way on a citywide level. We talk about transportation systems, land use and community development, local health professional partners. I know we've sponsored the the Pink Door campaign in November. We have our mall walkers in the pavilion. We've partnered with St. John Providence Hospital and other American Hearts Association, American Cancer Society, to get out healthy living. The health professionals, they're required to do a community health needs assessment every 3 years, and we've looked at that needs assessment and we've incorporated that into the plan. Today, cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in the U.S. That is a preventable, and we could do our part by making our communities more walkable. Our challenge is we were the fastest growing community in the 60s during the very auto-dominated land use pattern. But we've made a lot of strides in the positive way. In the last 5 years, we've had over 9 linear miles of either sidewalks, pathways, or bike paths installed in combination with our roads and other projects. Diabetes and obesity are at epidemic proportions, especially for our children. You recently authorized us to submit for Safe Routes to School, which was due last Friday, and we're applying for a $600,000 grant to install sidewalks in our neighborhoods with the highest density close to the schools. And these are all things that we need to do to be competitive. I talked again about healthy initiative partnerships, the mall walkers, the Pink Door campaign, other things that we do. We have a public health checklist that I'm hoping as a follow-up to the master plan that will incorporate these in our site plan review. We talk about green infrastructure. We're using best practices like existing low-impact development manual for Michigan, smart growth, urban agricultural, principles of healthy, sustainable food systems, and active living. The goal is to accumulate at least 30 minutes of heart-healthy activity each day. Individuals may achieve this by walking or biking for transportation, exercise or pleasure, playing in the park, working in the yard, taking the stairs, and using recreation facilities. If you've seen, we have little placards next to the elevator saying, save energy, use the stairs. We have 9.5 times around the pavilion is a mile. We know now that our front lawn loop 3 1/3 times around is a mile. So all these little things help reinforce active and healthy living. Another thing that we should be very concerned about is aging in community policy. We have a larger than normal senior citizen population, and we have the highest retirement population of any city in the state of Michigan. And we've looked at guidelines from AARP, and those are all included in the index of your appendices. We looked at hazard mitigation. We saw the effects of the large storm event that we had a year or two, and how that was devastating for how many residents, Fred? It was over 1,000 homes that were impacted from that storm event. And we know that we're going to have more extreme weather events, whether they be heat, wind, snow, or others. We know how important parks and recreation, natural preserves and open space, historical and cultural sites, and arts commission is to the community, and they're all talking about. Now, as far as population trends, our current population of Southfield is about 75,000, and it's kind of leveled off, and we see a slight uptake over the next decade or two. However, the age distribution will shift dramatically over the next 30 years. Thus, housing needs will change. We currently have about 35,000 housing units, half of which are home owner occupied, the other half are multiple family, but they tend to be of a certain style. Many young professionals and empty nesters are choosing to live in alternative types of housing that are walkable, close to retail, entertainment, and so forth. And in order for us to stay competitive, we have to provide different housing options. Also, since 1960, our household size has shrunk by over 1.25 persons per household. And that translates into effects in our school-age population and others. And as I stated, as of 2015, our retirement population was over 18% and growing. Housing and residential character. The typical family of a mom, father, kids, a dog, and a picket fence is now a minority. We have more extended families living together. We have more single heads of households living together, more female heads of households, and we have more unrelated people living together than we ever had. Our aging baby boomers are driving the need for more condos and urban town homes. They say there's going to be an economic tsunami coming for aging people who stay in their homes because our younger generations do not want a mortgage or a big yard or a big house even, and there's going to be a glut on the market. There's going to be too much inventory and not enough buyers. And that's going to have a tremendous impact on communities such as Southfield. Home ownership and occupancy rates have decreased slightly. We have a higher share of rental units than the metro area, and Southfield rents are also much higher compared to the metro area. With regards to economic development, Southfield's ability to attract the new economy, the knowledge economy, and the creative class is going to equal our ability to compete with other communities. Between 2010 and 2040, it's projected that private education and healthcare job sector are forecasted to have the biggest growth. I think we're pretty well positioned for that, especially with our medical Main Street areas in the DDA. There is expected to be a 15% increase in the total number of jobs in Southfield over the next 30 years, 25 years. Targeted businesses are technology, healthcare, and wellness, and the automotive sectors. Again, I think we're well positioned for those. Southfield attracted 3 large companies from these 3 sectors in 2015, including Hello World, Durr, and Great Expressions for over 1,100 jobs. Again, our challenge is to create an image of a city that young people are attracted to. And it's not just about young people, it's also about empty nesters, active seniors, and all stratifications of our population. This is what I call a heat index of jobs. So the darker purple are where the highest percentage or density of jobs per square mile. And it's probably not surprising that the city center area is one of the higher density populations. Some areas in northern DDA, and then over by Telegraph Road here. With regard to the public input with the mind mixer, we wanted to expand and to increase the amount of participation. In the old days, you used to put an advertisement in the paper, schedule on one night in a meeting room, and hope people showed up. And those that showed up were usually of the demographic of 55 and older. But this mind mixer allowed Southfield to solicit ideas and receive input from the public on a variety of 20 topics between January and July of 2015 on a weekly basis. Each topic had 3 to 5 questions with a couple open-ended questions, and the results have been compiled, quantified, and are being updated or being used for the master plan update. There was 4 different types of questions asked: the instant poll, the survey, photo share, and idea submission. The good news is we had over 5,500 unique visits to our website. We had about 500 active participants. And I like to always say that that's similar to 5,500 people showing up at a council meeting and 500 actually getting up and speaking at the podium. Our average participant was 37-year-old female, located in zip code 48075. 45% of the respondents were under 35 years old, and that was one of the demographics we were really striving for. At the same time, we still had over 23% of 55 and older participate, so we didn't exclude anybody. We actually just were able to pull in. We had over 20,000 page views, 750 unique ideas submitted, 175 photos that were shared, and then the website was also shared on Facebook, email, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Google. Top 3 ideas included walkability and connectivity throughout the city, and we saw that as a theme regardless of how we asked the question. This was over and over again one of the top 3 responses. Street and road repair was always up there, and redevelopment and or renovation of older commercial properties. And the full results of this are in your appendices, under Appendix A. All of the questions and the results are tabulated there. But we still did the old-fashioned dog and pony show. We probably went to 24 or more homeowners associations, groups. We personally went to all 3 high schools and engaged the students 14 to 18 years old. When I went to the university high school, I had the younger kids. They were freshmen and sophomores for the most part. And while I was still talking, they were already on their smartphones and participating in the surveys. So I didn't have to wait. They instantly gravitated to this. We also included the council's visioning session that was held in December, and a public workshop that we held with the Planning Commission January 20th. We had about 50 to 60 individuals show up. During the process, we sent out over 130 letters to all the registered associations and neighborhood groups, encourage them to participate. Existing land uses. Southfield is predominantly developed with only 4% vacant land. Single-family residential homes comprise the largest portion of our land use. The second highest is rights-of-way at almost 18%. And then office commercial represents 12.5%, public institutional 8.5%. One of the things we did was we used American Planning Association's land-based classification system. And there's 5 layers of that. The first layer is based on activity, and here's an example. We did all the maps in-house using our GIS department. And so we now own those maps, and we can update those on a regular basis. And this was based on a windshield survey, as well as our knowledge in the planning department of changes that have happened over the last 5 years. What we hope to do in the upcoming years after the master plan is adopted is to layer with function, structural type, site development, and ownership for every parcel in the city, and then keep that updated on a regular basis. With regards to future land use, these present idealized future indicated by the growth patterns of the city. They provide practical guidance to assist the orderly development and redevelopment of the city. But primarily, they serve as a policy guide for future land use decisions. When you get a rezoning in front of you, we always consult the master plan to make sure it's consistent with the master plan. And that should be one among many, but one of the most important decisions and criteria for whether or not you should rezone something. Because we've looked at large plots of land and how they interrelate with each other, and we've come up with future patterns of development based on our own experience. The other thing that's a little different is that we focus on sub-area plans, and we use the overlay development district sub-areas as our point of beginning. And so you've seen this map in various forms, but it includes the city center, the DDA, Smart Zone, the Telegraph Technology Corridor, the new North Southfield Road Corridor, and then the Northwestern Highway, which has based on that heat map, is where our highest density business development is. We included the Valley View senior housing study that was adopted, and we also overlaid 8 Mile Boulevard's design guidelines for 8 Mile development. So these are the sub areas that we concentrated on. They're primarily mixed-use districts. They're the main focus of future development, protecting the residential character, but focusing on where we have a higher density commercial mixes. And they include many detailed plans of things that have been recently done and what's proposed. Under the public infrastructure chapter, we consulted all of our departments. We included water, sanitary, and storm sewer systems, low impact design, green infrastructure, a water reliability study that was prepared in April 2014, our stormwater master plan. A lot of these documents were done by departments or consultants and just never made it off the shelf. So we've used them by reference and included them as part of the sub-plans of this master plan. Our non-motorized pathway and safe routes to school have all been incorporated into the plan. And then public facilities and services. I didn't want to just do a glossy overview of each of our departments, so I engaged every department head and asked them to give me input on what they do and what they think is of value. And so, for example, we're real proud that our violent crime rates are down, and we've included statistics from the police department in there. We looked at boards and commissions. We've got input from police, Homeland Security, Human Services, our Michigan Works, the library. Worked very closely with our Southfield Public Schools. We attended their retreat. We attended their administrator workshop, and we went and met with their students 3 times. I went to their 2020 Imagine. I've said I've had to rewrite that chapter 3 times because it's been a fluid mix of buildings closing and not closing, but we want to identify potential redevelopment. If you have an elementary school that's 10 acres or a middle school that's 15 acres, that all gives us potential for redevelopment, maybe for single or multiple, low density multiple family. I certainly don't think we want any more charter schools. So we want to be proactive on how that land is situated for the future. The public workshop that was held by the Planning Commission, as I stated, we had almost standing room only. These are some of the things that came out of that: incentives for investment into homes, restore library hours, more sidewalks, encourage renovation of aging structures, housing redevelopment, daylight the River Rouge, redevelopment of vacant property at Evergreen and Civic Center, redevelopment of the Northland Mall property, highlight existing parks, update technology and infrastructure, repurpose schools, more family-style restaurants and entertainment, and redevelopment of 9 Mile Road were all issues that came up. The implementation portion of the plan is ongoing, but what we did is we went through each of the chapters and recommendations and public input, and we came up with a starting point for implementation based on theme. And then the appendices include the results of Mind Mixer, AARP Livability Index, and FEMA mitigation ideas. So the question I ask is, how do outsiders perceive Southfield? Today, many people will just do their research about whether they're going to relocate to a community all on the internet. They never step place in your city. And they look at walkable scores, biking scores, they look at crime indexes, they look at cost of living. And they'll look at things like the AARP Livability Index, which was launched as an online tool designed to help communities better serve the nation's aging population. 4,500 seniors were surveyed to determine the aspects of the community most important to them. There was 6 categories: housing, neighborhood, transportation, environment, health, engagement, and opportunity. And all the major cities in this country were rated on an index of up to 100. And we scored 49 out of 100. So we're just below median. We know we can do a better job and get that rate up there. But it's important to understand how other people perceive us through these indexes, fair or unfair, because some people will make a decision whether they're going to take a job or buy a house just based on their research alone without ever visiting here. And we need to be cognizant of that, and we need to work on getting our scores. And I said I would be really happy and proud if we can increase that 10 points, 15 points in the next 5 years by continuing to do the things that we do. So as far as next steps, we've already prepared a preliminary draft plan. We'd like to come back on February 29th for your authorization to proceed. We've got a couple little tweaks. This is the first time we've put it all together, and obviously when you take a step back and look at it. So we're going to get that up to speed. If the council authorizes us on the 29th of February, by the end of that week, we will distribute it to all adjacent communities. We will post it on our web. We'll have a hard copy available at our counter. And we hope to engage the public for the next 63 days. This will go to Oakland County's planning group. They'll make a recommendation back to us. Then it goes to, we'll incorporate all those changes, if they're substantial, into a draft plan, which the Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on May 25th, and then it'll come back to council in June for your final consideration and adoption. And once the plan is adopted, then we will start working on updating the zoning ordinance to make it consistent with the zoning plan of the master plan, as well as implementation on building more sidewalks, incorporating complete street tenants. And if you look at what Evergreen Road was, that was a complete street that incorporated both vehicular movement, pedestrian movement, non-motorized transit, art, green infrastructure, low impact design, LED lighting. That's what we should be striving for throughout the city so that we're more competitive. So that's my quick overview. I'm trying to take 500 pages and put it into 30 slides.
I've got 2 questions. First of all, Terry, define an overlay development.
Well, that's the zoning tool that the council adopted. We've had,
Define what it is.
well, it's a flexible development agreement that we can vary from the strict standards of the zoning ordinance if we get a higher development design. And we've approved, the council has approved 5 of those to date. That allows us to do mixed use where we couldn't currently do that with our current zoning. We have a 75-foot setback required. The reason we have buildings in the center of property and surrounded by asphalt is because we require people to do that, because we have a 75-foot setback. So in the right case and the right project, we could waive ourselves from that requirement and say, you can build to the road, you can build within 10 feet of the road. Our trade-off is we'll give you a higher density and mixed use, but we want nicer looking building, we want a public space, we want pedestrian orientation, we want better landscaping, we want more green infrastructure.
So it's a way of modifying the plan to get something that's more suitable to that area.
That's right.
Hopefully.
And it's a two-way
Right.
agreement, the council and the developer,
Oh,
and then
and
that all
it's-
gets put into a document that gets approved and recorded, and then they have to follow that in the future.
Okay.
So if I could, that development down the street where CK Mediterranean Just Bake, that second building to the north, that's 2-story, that could not be built in its present form without the ODD. Alring Klinger, that took over the Staples building, Easy Storage, the Travelers Tower out parcel, Arbor Lofts, and our last one was another one on Southfield Road. All of those projects couldn't currently be built.
Any chance you have a list of those? in that other one? I'd
Yeah,
like to
and they're
see-
all in the plan. They're
Oh,
all
they are?
identified in the
As a-
plan.
And a separate location that
In the
they're all-
sub-areas, they've been identified, yes.
But are they in separate areas throughout the plan or one? I'd like to see one of all.
All in the sub-area chapter, chapter 8.
Okay.
3 are in the city center. 1 is on the northwestern corridor, and the other 2 are on North Southfield Road
Okay,
corridor.
my other question is, when you talk about vacant land, are wetlands and woodlands considered that vacant land, or, in other words, buildable or not? Is vacant land buildable or not?
Vacant land would be buildable land.
So wouldn't be wetlands, so woodlands would not be included.
No, and we have a very strong emphasis on protecting woodlands and wetlands. As a matter of fact, one of the maps, if I could show you real quick. We have about eight detailed maps. But this one actually shows Word of Faith Church property as designated woodlands and wetlands. And these are important things to have adopted because they help us defend on where development takes place. And we have a list of historic, cultural, parks, passive areas. Our river corridors, our floodplains are all identified because we can make land use and site plan decisions that say either yes or no. Based on, this is one of the most exciting maps, and we've had variations of this, but not all put together. I think GIS did a great job. But these are more than just plans because they're really gonna help us defend keeping things out we don't want and supporting things that we do. And that's why this master plan, although it's a guide, is something that will guide the council on making these land use decisions in the future, especially rezoning or on, environmental sensitive issues like
So
Word
this
of
is,
Faith.
we never had that just like this.
Not just like this,
That's
no.
great. I'd like to get a copy. That's great, thank you.
And it's in the plan, and we've
I'd
also
like to
identified,
get one that size.
we've also identified all of our community facilities, and I took everything that Southfield Schools is doing and tried to keep up to date, what schools are closing, which ones are staying in place, and so forth.
I think that's great, thank you. I'm done. I do think that ad is great, to have that, wonderful.
Mr. Bradley?
Yeah. Chair, I guess, got a couple. I went through this on my desktop at home. On page 63, I don't want to get too much into detail because I have a couple of things. There was something about, when I was reading, I've seen the census, but is the black population in Southfield 54%?
No,
Did I read that wrong?
I'll tell you. So our demographics chapter, I think, is chapter 4.
Well, on the disc, it was on page 63.
Looks like it's 61, page 61.
61.
Race, maybe, is that what you're looking for?
Racial
Yeah.
Yeah, race distribution is a chart.
Yeah.
61 of the, yeah.
Yeah, on page 61, but on the disc it was 63. Down in race, it says, city white minority black population now comprises more than 54%. Is that correct?
I think it's close to, I think it should be 84. I think it's a typo, but I'll double check that.
Okay.
And these come right from the census data.
Okay, yeah.
So that could just be a typo.
Okay, no problem. And on my disc, it was page 71, but talking about rent. That middle chart,
Yep.
4.9,
Yep.
is that, how do I read that? Our regional residential rental share, I might read that correctly, 51.4% of the housing. What is that, John?
Is that for the, that our percentage of rental, of all the units, 51.4 is rental, compared to an average of 30% in Oakland County and 30% in Metro. So we're almost, we're almost, you could almost say we're 70% higher.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, so as an average mean, Oakland County and Metro only have about 30% of their housing units in residential is rental, and we're just above 50%.
So it's 50%.
So of our 35,000, and I said roughly half is rental, half is owner occupied, 51.4% is actually rental according to this.
That's, well, that caught my eye, I didn't think we would
Is
have
that
it. But that
housing
takes,
or everything?
Rental units.
All rental.
All, if you compared all housing units with
and-
apartments and owner occupied, of the total number, just slightly more than half is rental alone. And that could be a single family homes that's
It's
being
everything.
rented.
It's everything.
Yeah,
All residential.
yeah. All right.
okay, that's, those are, no, that's having a fish line.
Mr. Progress?
You know, Terry, when you ask council to adopt it, are you adopting it as a guide?
Yes.
Or as a document that is firm?
No, it's a guide. It's a guide that's meant to be updated. It's a blueprint, as I would say. You could start with a blueprint of your house. And then as you go along, you want to change the interior stuff.
I just,
This
you know,
is not,
that is
it's not
almost-
regulatory it's not like an ordinance that's regulatory, but your decisions on land use and other things should be based on this guide. But you're not tied to it. It's not cast in stone.
yeah, but on the planning commission, they sometimes, as they take a position on a piece of property, they said it's not in accordance with the master plan.
Right.
And planner does the same thing.
Right.
Well, that sometimes tells the council person that therefore I've got to vote against it because it's not in keeping with the master plan. And I'm very concerned about the way that I identify a master plan because, you know, way back when, you know, the Philadelphia study was done on Southfield, and they said that we had a lack of apartments, and we ended up with 17,000 units, all right? And what the bank and institutions loan you money for is what the developer comes in and tries to attain, because that's where he gets the money. He uses the example, you know, micro apartments that they now have in Detroit, and the lofts in Detroit. Well, that's all new. And they had to look at how many units per acre or building or whatever. And that change had to take place for the millenniums that's coming on, and half the population is going to be millenniums. And that is a whole different living quality of life, I should say, than that I'm used to,
Right.
or those at my age. So it's got to have flexibility, because everything is ever changing.
You're absolutely right.
And I just wanted to make that point because there's, you know, you get yourself in a jam sometimes when you are looking at what the plan shows, and what the market indicates. Like I said, the hotels, I was talking about that early on. I was asking the developer, why are there so many hotels now? They're popping up like corks in the water. And it's because there's money for it. And that's why we probably, where you're located in different areas, I mean, you go down 14 Mile Road in Orchard Lake, they're popping up like crazy. The Macaroni Grill is a Holiday Inn, and one across the street's another one. I mean, they're opening up, I'm saying there's who stays in these places. You know, I mean, where would you go to stay at 14 Mile Road in Orchard Lake and have competing hotels? So, I just say these things because I've been through that and people have hung their hat on that this is a master plan and this is, matter of fact, we have people here on Gardner that are talking about your master plan.
Elmira, but.
And Elmira, but I'm just saying is that our difference is gonna happen and it's nice to know where we're headed at our best guess.
That's what it is.
But the best guess sometimes is screwed because the money is going somewhere else.
Well, let me give you some comfort. First of all, is we really shouldn't wait 5 years to review the master plan. There should be a yearly ongoing update. The plan that was adopted in 2009 was just before the recession hit. Things have changed with retail and home and work exponentially since that time. The other thing is that if it warrants, and I use the expansion of Lawrence Tech into Circle Drive for the dormitory. That was planned residential, but before we rezoned it, we actually amended the master plan because the council felt that that was a project to support and made that part of the Education and Research Office to allow for the rezoning to take place. So if market conditions change or something changes, we could do a sub-area plan. So the SMART zone, in essence, is a sub-area plan, and the council felt that to spur redevelopment and to attract dollars, they adopted the SMART zone, and we did that as part of an amendment to the previous plan. Now we've incorporated the SMART zone into our plan. But as I point out, this is our existing land use, but let's say our future land use at Beach and 9 Mile is to keep that predominantly low density single family, and someone wants to come in and build an industrial park there. Well, that's inconsistent with our master plan. And so we could say, well, we recommend denial because it's not consistent with our master plan. Now, if for whatever reason the council said that makes perfect sense, we would like to see this redeveloped for a research tech park. We have 100 acres of available land. Then what I would suggest to you is that we would amend the master plan, if that made sense, go through that process, and then come back and rezone. So there's always layers of protection. It helps keep things out that we don't want more than allows things in that makes us nervous.
Yeah, but see, when that request comes in, saying that it does not meet the master plan, as opposed to planning commission and the planner looking at, and us, looking at what is the present economy, what is the new trend that's happening out there, and maybe nobody will live in single-family houses anymore. I don't know. You look at some of these towns now, and they build 15 stories, 40 stories, and whatever they are now like in rat's nests, instead of building single-family houses.
Well, market
and
conditions.
Those, if you look at the Wall Street Journal, those doggone condos are going up higher, more expensive than these actors and actresses' houses. You can buy an actor's house, mammoth thing, for $3.5 million, and then you got a condo that goes for $23 million. I mean, it doesn't even jive. I mean, why would you be able to buy a condo for $23 million and then not have this beautiful house on a nice ridge and overlooking a nice, terrain? But that's what's happening. I can't believe that when you look at at the mansions in Wall Street, look at it, it's insane. I mean, nobody wants a big house. Nobody wants a big house anymore. And
Well, I
so
don't-
how do we fit in?
Well, that's the
You know.
challenge is, you know, my 3 young adult kids, they don't want a mortgage, they don't want to have maintenance, they want to, they'll save every penny to go on a trip somewhere and then be broke again until the next time they can save enough money to go on a trip. They don't want to be tied down with a mortgage, they don't want to have a car payment, they want to use Uber, they want to use public transit, they want to walk, they want to be in places that are cool. And that's the trend, and we shouldn't throw everything away for that, but we also know that we have empty nesters and people who are in retirement that don't want the big house anymore or the mortgage. They want to downsize, but they still want everything that everyone else does. They want to be able to walk, to entertainment, culture, good places to eat. They want to be able to take their grandkids to parks. They want all the same things, and we have 13,000 people that come here every day in our little half-mile city center. And the more walkable, the more pedestrian-friendly, the more variety of things that we can offer them, that's better for the owners of the buildings and the business people who are trying to recruit talent that are in competition for going to other cities.
Let me ask you, like, the item that you had there for seniors, transportation, for example. You want to get a couple of points up the ladder by providing transportation. Well, if you don't have the density, you know, I mean, you can't get the transportation that they define as transportation, to
Right.
get your point. And so those who moved out to the suburbs, and a lot of those criteria that are listed there, you probably would never be able to gain anything because of the distance between people and out in the suburbs. I mean,
Right, but just think about Evergreen Road. If, in adopting transit-oriented design, and you say a quarter mile on either side of this existing bus route, we're going to allow for higher density mixed use. And that's why Woodward at their Wayne State and stuff is taking off, because they're building the trolley system, and development is taking off because people want to be within a quarter mile of that. You could save 18% of your normal living expenses is geared towards transportation. That's car payment, maintenance, gas.
but you're
If you could
looking
save
at a major
18%.
university, and you're looking at an urban center,
I know that.
and that's why the transportation, it only goes to the Grand Boulevard, and that's it. And so really, if you are in the Detroit suburbs, you don't have the same transportation you do in that first, what is it, 3 miles that one is?
Right.
3, 4 miles?
But we know that our minimum wage, entry-level workers who may have a car in the family, may not, rely on public transit to get to and from work, to get to and from OCC, to get to and from LTU. Many come up to our library for job training or for job opportunities. And they may or may not live in Southfield, but they're using our facilities because there's access through public transit. And we can reinforce that in strategic areas. We're talking about redevelopment in Northland Mall, possibly relocating the transit center. We know there's a big need at the hospital and OCC. And so I'm not saying we need bus routes and trolley cars on every mile road, but we should focus on our major corridors where we have the highest density population of residents, students, and business people.
And then I'll be quiet, but if you look at SimCog, you went from 2020 now to 2035, and you look at that map, you don't recognize it. I mean, it's so northwest, and Macomb going, what, 58% or more? I mean, people are leaving they're going to the urban center, but they're not going to that first, second, and third tier community anymore. They're going to South Line, they're going to Livingston County, they're just going out further. And I thought for sure that as Detroit became more urbanized and more people with, you know, millennials wanting to be there where the groups are, that they would they would maybe branch off at us a little bit. But that's not happening. That's not, unless we build micro apartments or more lofts.
Those are the things I think we need to consider.
And then they ride, just like that pro, he said, I ride my bicycle, I live 3 blocks from the ballpark, I drive my bicycle, park in the reserve parking lot with my bicycle. So there are, if you live in an area that where you work, that's fine, then you can minor, but I just throwing that out because I look at this all the time trying to figure out where people are going, and it's that 2035 is crazy. Anyways, that's it for tonight.
I just want to know, the city had an Instagram account. I know the library does. Does the city?
I had to ask community relations, but I can tell you that's one of the things that the high school kids asked about Instagram, because that's how they communicate.
Well, the millennials too.
Yeah.
They're gonna attract, the younger.
They said no, the moms have stolen Facebook from them, they just use
Yeah.
Instagram.
I think that's something we should.
They're working on that.
Yeah.
They were a lot.
Sure.
Get into it after.
Is there any more discussion?
I would just like to compliment our planning department and all those that partook in doing this big job, because I know how big it is, and it's really a great piece of work, it really is.
Thanks, so if we could, we'll come back under consent item. Just authorize us to release this on the 29th.
29th meeting.
And if you see anything in the interim, we have plenty of time to update. We've got a couple typos ourselves, and we'll be.
I have hard copies it's here. I know you gave me the disc.
Okay.
I think I'm good.
It's easier.
It's easier.
It's just too big.
Oh, because I didn't look at it on the desk.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is easier, isn't it, when it's
Yeah.
paper?
For something this big.
Right,
Yes.
yeah, I hate
Right.
scrolling.
Yes.
Terry, she's got, I know.
Okay, so, what we'll do is, when we've incorporated all the public comment, we'll come back
Hopefully,
with,
yeah, that matter.
yeah,
Make sure.
because I hate to have this printed out, and it probably could change 5 times between now and then.
No,
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good.
And again, we're trying to move towards being more sustainable, but, I even found it helpful, when you stare at things on a computer, and then I took this home and flipped through it, I saw things that I didn't see when I was looking at it on the computer.
All right, Chair, thank you very much.
Jerry, Jerry, I'd like to have a regular copy, I try to scroll it, it doesn't.
Just in there, bro.
Just make one for everyone?
What?
All right.
I said just in there, bro. My computer doesn't take this.
I'll,
Yeah, that's what I heard, they don't make them with the disc.
after we do the updates, is that fair?
Get you a
That's
flash.
fine. That's all. You got that.
We don't have a copy of that?
Well, I gave one in your packet. We had, I think, 5 council persons that said, we'll try the CD. One had a USB port, and the others we made hard copies, but we had to produce 15 copies, double-sided, colored, bound in 2 volumes, between Thursday after council president and Friday morning, so we were trying to cut down on that, to be fair to our production department. I'll make sure the final one, everyone gets a hard copy.
Thank you. Next item is a discussion piece as well on the amending of the resolution establishing the Veterans Commission. So Sue, are you going to take
Yeah,
this?
obviously, Councilman Brightwell brought this up to Council President, and pursuant to that direction, I pulled the resolution that established the Veterans Commission. It did specify that members to be appointed must be residents and veterans. Again, this was established by resolution. It's not an ordinance. Council can change that resolution anytime that they so desire. And so it's my understanding at this point that there's a little bit of a difficulty maybe recruiting enough members for the commission, and that maybe it's appropriate to remove the requirement that members be residents and veterans. Council President thought maybe the best way to kind of, as a practical matter to make this work, just indicate the preference would be given to veterans and residents. And so if you take a look at what I've included, there's a proposal to amend the resolution just to take away the requirement of those two components, and then just indicate preference for membership on the commission shall be given to veterans and residents.
That makes sense. That makes
So that's,
sense.
that's, now, I guess if there's consensus on this, we could put this on the 29th unless there's some reason to move it at a different pace, but otherwise,
Seems
I
like
got an
lining
eye.
up change.
Board? Change?
I know that, I had a call from Ted Goff with the police department. Apparently they've got 4 or 5 people that they're in the process of moving through for potential membership. And one of those persons happens to be a non-resident, so I did indicate to him that I would let him know tomorrow what direction the council wanted to go, so,
And we currently do have a non-veteran.
that's right, because council waived that requirement as they appointed, so.
And there's a possibility, there's some volunteers on the Veterans Commission. And even when I was chair, I was, every meeting I was praying I had a quorum, you know. And I'm one of my veteran, World War II vet, I would not let her resign. But she turned the paper at them until we, well, she showed up, we make sure I had a quorum. So this way it kind of clears the air a little bit as we're trying to get volunteers.
There is a possibility, and we'll probably know tomorrow, that at our next regular meeting, we may be appointing some new people to the Veterans Commission. One of those, I believe, is currently a
The
non-resident.
non-resident.
So the question becomes, if we do the appointments before the consent agenda, or if this is gonna be a consent agenda item, can we appoint someone without doing the resolution beforehand?
Yeah, if it's a timing issue and those appointments are coming on the 29th, I hate to say it, but maybe it's appropriate just to do a Rule 10 tonight. I know, in Mr. Fraser's absence.
Fraser's not here.
Or do you, or
Or
should
you're
we
gonna put the
wait?
appointments after the consent agenda on the 29th?
Does anybody oppose it?
Where we talk the rules in, or just hold it?
No, this
I would
whole-
rather wait
Okay.
and just do it that way.
That night?
If we do it that night, we.
Then too, I think, if we wish, we could just appoint them next month. I mean, at the next meeting.
Yeah, the
So,
29th?
Yeah, so if this is, things can flow, I think the veterans, we won't die between now and then. And, nothing, so as far as upsetting the apple cart, getting out of protocol, we just wait to appoint them once this has been made official.
Well, again, the way to do it, you could put this on the consent for the 29th, when the appointments, although they typically are they go first, but you could ask to defer the appointments to the Veterans Commission until after the consent agenda. I mean,
Why can't we wait till the next month?
well, that's
Is
another
it
thought
that urgent?
too.
Or can we just do the appointments at the following meeting?
We do what we can now, and then otherwise we just wait if there's a stick up or something. hold it
Okay,
up,
so
we
just put this on the 29th consent.
That's okay with
Is
everyone,
there
yes.
an increase in, are we adding new quantities of members, or are we increasing the quantity?
No. It's, that's still staying the same, 7 members.
Okay.
Is that, okay with the council? Different? Oh.
Yeah, I did just noted that when I was on boards and commissions, we waived the residency, or rather the veteran requirement for this individual because she comes from a family of veterans, she had demonstrated experience working with veterans, and she was also younger and a female, and the commission needed that. So it was a very important consideration as to why we did that. And if they're having trouble attracting members, then I think it's reasonable to loosen the requirements.
She's a very good worker. Very-
Yeah, I mean,
very active. Yeah,
she's
very-
been very, very active, so it proved to be a very good appointment.
Okay, well then, if there's no objection, we'll just put February 29th consent agenda. Lastly, we have item number 5, the discussion around real estate property. Mr. Zorns.
We have a number of parcels, and we're passing out a map, parcels 1 through 6, ENL LLC, which is affiliated with American Mulch, also formerly known as Paul's Tree Service, has approached us about acquiring parcels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, approximately 4.5 acres of land. I'm also going to circulate a communication from the assessor. The approximate value of this land, according to our assessor, is about 75 cents per square foot. The city's, these parcels are actually in the name of the Southfield LDFA, and I'm hoping to obtain a consensus if there's a desire to sell the properties. They were acquired as part of the blight elimination cleanup of the local development finance district number 2. Now, some of you have heard me say when we talked about the smart zone, we were waiting for the smart zone to be approved, and then we were going to clean up some of these TIFs and LDFAs. LDFA number 2 has been inactive for about, I'm told by our finance department, for about 10 years. We're researching what it will take to fully close out this LDFA, or what the future disposition of the LDFA 2 will be. LDFA 2 does have some assets, and as we go through that plan, we'll present this. The LDFA, as part of their activities, acquired these 6 parcels. They also acquired parcels 7 and 8 to extend Maplewood Road. ENL owns the property in blue just to the east of parcels 5 and 6. That is the formerly Sterling Steel. And I believe the offer's fair. The city has the acquisition of these properties 1 through 6. The first parcel was acquired based on the titles information I got late Friday, June of 1994 through October of 1998. We were assembling the properties, eliminating some of the substandard structures. On 5 and 6, there used to be an entity called Production Industries located on that site. So if there's a consensus from council, myself and the city attorney will move forward on preparing a purchase agreement. The approximate amount we were discussing was $147,000, or that 75 cents per square foot. That's the second paragraph of the communication we have from Mike Radcliffe. The first paragraph will pertain to an item I'll most likely have in front of you either the next meeting or one of our meetings in March.
Mr. Medlin?
I'm assuming they're gonna use the land and develop it for whatever use they
They'll
have.
need to go through planning and zoning and obtain the various approvals. Obtaining the various approvals from planning and that, engineering will probably be a condition of the sale, but it is proposed to use it for an expansion of the American Mulch Company. The other parcels that they own in blue are the, just to the south. You can see where Paul's Tree Service originally started, the smaller parcel here. And then this parcel here is where they're currently storing the mulch that's produced in this facility here.
So is there, what is this zone?
The property is owned light industrial.
So, because you have that residential neighborhood right next to it, so whatever they propose, there may be.
If you'll look to the parcels 1, 2, 3, and 4,
Yep.
rather interesting, the Southfield Growth Corporation owns one property, and the city owns another property, but there are 2 parcels adjacent and just to the north of parcels 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then obviously there are parcels north of the cul-de-sacs and parcel 5. The planning and zoning would, as it goes through the site plan, the appropriate buffering required by ordinance would be required.
Okay.
I'm sorry, who are you saying wants to buy these?
It's, the name of the purchase would be an ENL LLC, and that's American Mulch. They're currently located on 8 Mile. It is Paul and Trish Keats. Trish is here this evening with us. Paul's Tree Service is a longtime Southfield business. I believe in 2008, 2009, we started preparing the mulch.
2006.
Okay, 2000, okay. So they've been doing mulch since then, and the business is very quietly expanded and becoming quite known for the product they produce. Very environmentally friendly mulch product.
Which one is that?
Which one?
That little one there?
Yeah, that's, yep. That was the original building, then they acquired this property. And mid-January of this year, you acquired the Sterling Scale building.
But
Which one
they
is
have-
that?
They have access,
That's
then.
This one.
They have access to 8 Mile Road then.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, that's the reason I question it, because up here where you have 7 and 8, there's a roadway that turns, Maple Ridge turns,
Yep.
and is anybody gonna be landlocked?
No,
Because
we will continue to retain ownership of 7 and 8. And I need to spend a little bit of time with engineering. I think it's an interesting design that the right-of-way wasn't disposed of to the adjacent, but it's also a way that a lot of communities use to protect their interest relative to where curb cuts and that are installed. And I suspect that may have been what the intention was. That we own both sides and therefore we can control where the curb cuts. I did put a call into the former planner to have a dialogue about what he recalled on this.
So they're wanting to purchase 1 through 6?
Yeah, 1 through 6. 7 and 8, the street itself would remain. And that does provide access to part of the Sterling Scale building, which we labeled as parcel 9.
Is there some significance to some of these being labeled in the name of the city versus other ones are labeled in the name of the LDFA? Is it possible that the city owns some of these and some are
According to
owned by the LDFA?
According to the title,
Yeah,
they're in the name of the city. But yet the record says.
Shows
I'm
LDFA.
sorry, they're in the name of the LDFA.
but even if you look at 5 and 6,
Six.
that just says city aside. Is it possible that there's a divergence of who owns here?
The title says Southfield.
LDFA, okay.
It says city of.
Okay, so all 1 through
Southfield,
6,
LDFA.
LDFA. Okay.
We have this little cul-de-sac that kind of cuts through their property. Are they buying that cul-de-sac area too, or is their property gonna get cut in half?
There is a 60-inch storm drain that goes under that road, so whatever happens, we need to retain an easement, and we've got to work our way through that issue. So, that, we could at minimum maintain the easement, and that little cul-de-sac, that little ball could be a future sale, but we would maintain something to protect that stormwater drain in that easement.
Are these properties on Melrose a part of the purchase? These are in red, right?
Yeah, we're not proposing to sell those.
Okay.
The one is owned by the Southfield Growth Corporation, and we're still working on a strategy on that. That's actually a home that we had torn down. But as we complete our NSP 3 obligations, we'll probably be looking at working with a partner and building something there. That hasn't been determined yet. At some point, right now, we're focusing on closing out NSP 1. And in the next couple of weeks, we'll be having some dialogue with HUD on that lot. The other one's owned by the city. I haven't researched how we got that one yet. May have been,
Could have been a tax,
yeah,
not purchased, not picked up at tax sale.
yeah. The first parcel in that communication referenced by the city assessor That was actually one that we obtained through a tax foreclosure.
Mayor Seibert, did you still-
My questions were answered. Thank you.
Anyone have any other further questions or discussion on this item?
Well, if there's a consensus, we'll bring it forward on the 29th. We'll continue to do some research on the LDFA questions, and I may need to bring this board together, have them take an action, and then bring it back to council. And today being the 8th, we obviously have ample time to do that.
Well, I don't have any problem with it, but I'm just sensitive to land use now with everything that's going on with Word Faith, and, you know, just wondering what their intentions are for the property and how they plan to use it in the future. Is it to, you know, grow the mulch business, or, because it is light industrial, so will she have the opportunity to have the floor to
Sure.
share?
Would you like to?
Call her now.
Yeah,
Would you-
please, feel free to come up to the podium.
Yeah, like.
Well,
Could you give us your name?
my name is Patricia Keach, and I'm the owner of ENL Building LLC and co-owner of American Mulch Producers. And we are a wholesale mulch production company, and the purpose for wanting to acquire the property would be for expansion of storage for mulch, basically. So it's not gonna, there's not gonna be a lot of development on the property. It's gonna be primarily putting in temporary bin blocks and having places to store mulch. Right now, the property is significantly treed, so we would have to remove the trees. And I think it's being used right now for some kind of, somebody's renting it, using it for concrete construction trees. It's a wide variety of trees. Wide variety. There are big ones, small ones, there's some that are this big, there's some that are this big. Yeah, but it is zoned light industrial, so trees and light industrial really go together.
Okay. Mr. Seibert?
Ms. Keach, you would, of course, you're very familiar, because you've been in the tree business here for, I think, 40 years.
I
you know-
personally have not.
No, your husband has, but maybe it's 30, but what's a few years? Anyhow, you're very familiar, I know you're very familiar with the Southfield tree ordinance as Southfield residents as well. So if you cut down any veteran trees or landmark trees.
Yeah,
as
we've
we
already
call them.
actually spoken to Noreen Kozlowski in the planning department about that and what mitigation would be required for us to remove it, and she said that it would be easy to come up with a plan for us to replant in areas to mitigate the removal of those trees.
And you know, you could either replant or you could contribute to our tree fund, and we would plant those trees elsewhere in the city.
Well, that would definitely be something we would consider doing.
She needs more mulch.
No,
that's true.
All right, anyone else have any more questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So again, if this consensus of the group, will move this to the 29th, February 29th, regular meeting. Do you have anything? All right, very good. Next, we'll move on to our communications portion of the meeting. First up is Ms. Pamela Gerald. Gerald, you have 3 minutes to discuss this body.
I don't was 4 now.
Not yet.
Let me know when you're ready. Okay. Richard Branson of Virgin Records said that if you take care of your employees, they will take care of your clients. The clients in this case are the residents of Southfield. And I don't think that our city administrator is taking care of our employees. You know, I've been doing some thinking and going back to some of the other council meetings, looking at some of the things that our city administrator has been talking about. And then I had a light bulb moment. I think that our city administrator would have done very well in Shelley Freeman's position as the Economic Development Director. I also went in the city's charter and looked up the roles and duties of the city administrator, and I just don't see you focused on a lot of those things. And I just wanted to make that known.
Conveniently, Art Moran was at a televised meeting for the first time, talking about the recent audit that they did for the city. And out of all that they said, what I was able to remember most was that the pension was underfunded. Now, I'm going around to all of the different places, to pension meetings, trying to understand that, because that's the one thing about municipal government that I don't understand, is pensions and contributions, and VIVA, health insurance, retiree insurance. And one thing that I wanted to ask, and I know you like to answer questions, Mr. Zorn, if an employee does not get a raise 8 to 10 to 12 to 15 years, does that mean that their contributions into their pension plan is cut due to the lack of not getting a raise? That would be one question. And the other question is the raises that you have given, like to Shelley Freeman, to Linda Staten, to Rick Lamke. What were those raises based on? Tenure? Merit? Performance evaluation? Or was it just what I'm calling the Friends and Family Plan, which seems to be a very exclusive membership in the city of Southfield, to be a member of the city administrator's Friends and Family Plan. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is, it appears as if, looking at the duties of a city administrator, that you do have an obligation to the public, but you also have an obligation to the employees. You don't even seem to have a relationship with the employees. You know, there are certain residents that are here at the city all the time, and people in various departments, they acknowledge us and have some kind of roundabout conversation. Hey, how you doing? Great, what's going on? I don't ever see you, and I'm here a lot, talking to employees like that. I think that you're very arduous with the employees, you're very pretentious, and I don't think you respect the employees. And lastly, maybe we should consider changing Southfield to Taylorfield, because I'm getting the feeling that everything that you're doing here, you're trying to bring what you've done to Taylor, to the city of Southfield, and think of the different names for the city. Diversity, All-American City. Thank you. Taylorfield, consider that name for Southfield.
Next up, we have Mr. Gerard Mullen. We have 3 minutes.
Gerard Mullen, Post Office Box 155, Southfield, Michigan, 48037. Mr. Chairman, Ronald Reagan once said that the 11 most feared words in the English language are, "We are from the government, and we're here to help." That is what is happening to the city of Flint right now. And that's about to happen here in the city of Southfield. Governor Snyder and his friends at the MDEQ, the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, are not satisfied with having poisoned Flint's tap water. Now they're about to poison Flint's bottled water as well. You may ask, how is this possible? Well, it's a little known fact that much of Flint's bottled water comes from the groundwater right here in Southfield. And the MDEQ, the gang that can't shoot straight, is about to give approval for a permit to allow the Jordan Development Company the right to drill and operate a 2,900-foot deep oil and gas well on residentially zoned land in the middle of this city, the city of Southfield. To be precise, the Word of Faith property at the northwest corner at Evergreen and 9 Mile Road, just 1.5 miles from City Hall. It should be noted that contributory branches of the Rouge River run through and under Southfield, and that many residents get their drinking water from well water here in Southfield. It is purported that in the history of the MDEQ that only 4 permits have been denied for oil and gas wells out of 93,000 applications. Not a very good omen for those of us who drink well water and or bottled water here in the city of Southfield. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Mr. William Green Jr. Mr. Green here tonight.
I think he left.
He left already. Alrighty. Council, do you have any other items you'd like to discuss before we adjourn? Yes, sir. Mr. Meadows.
Just one question. I'm sure we've all received the emails and the letters from different people. I know Mr. Green was gonna talk about it too, about the water bills, and either they're leaky faucets or they don't know exactly where there was an issue why the water bill was. What happens in those situations?
To those letters?
With those letters, do we send out our DPW workers to double check to make sure there's no leaks or anything else, or just trying to, because it seems to be coming up more frequently. Besides the one tonight, there was 2 others last week, and I'm just wondering what happens.
When we get communication like that, we typically report our order history. And yes, the department usually goes out and does some type of physical inspection. We often look to see that the problem has been remedied. And then, sometimes adjustments are made to bills. And the adjustments of the bills, we typically look at what the average bill was before the anomaly. And the anomalies, a running toilet can use an absurd amount of money. A dripping faucet in a basement. And I think right now we've got 3 cases that we're working on, Edmonds, Moore, and Green. And I don't know if deputy administrators, do you want to comment, John? The 3 water bills at Moore, I think it's Moore, Green, and Edmonds.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just to add to what Mr. Zorn said, often the meters are tested to confirm there's accurate readings. But generally, the homeowners understand what happened. For instance, in Green, there was a water-activated backup sub pump. And those are very problematic. Not only do they potentially endanger our water supply, but they get stuck. And this one got stuck for 1 month, and it ran up $1,400 bill. Because they're very inefficient, though. Even when they work, they're only pumping 1 gallon for every 4 gallons of city water they use. So, and in this case, there was no flood to pump. They bought a new home. They knew they had a battery one, but they didn't know they also had this water-powered one. The float on that one got stuck. It ran for a month. Another thing, just to let you know, is DPW also will leave notes for people if they realize that there's high water usage when they see it. One of the reasons why DPW wants to go to the auto read feature is because they can do that much more quickly. And that would be great for us, not wasting water, great for the residents, not hiking their bills. But that is how they have been handled in the past as far as overages. Generally, we want to see some effort that they could show, we had the problem, or a plumber came out and found what the problem was, it's been repaired, we don't expect it to go on forward.
I would say we typically get 3 to 4 of these every billing cycle, where you'll have some type of anomaly. We try to get it resolved. The ones for neighbors out of town, someone leaves a hose, turns the garden hose on. We've had those, but the department usually does go out and do a physical inspection. Sometimes I think they go in and they'll go in and make the adjustment to the toilet and do some things, but a lot of times we encourage people to bring a private plumber in as well. And we usually look to adjust the bill once we know the problem has been abated. We don't care to abate bills when the problem hasn't been abated, because we're just going to keep running that up. I will say that part of keeping our water rates in line where we have been, and last year we had one of the lower increases we tend to be, is by reducing our water loss. And what the investment we've made in the system the last few years, we've seen substantially less water losses. I can run a report, but at one time, we were approaching 20% of our water from what we bought to what we sold is being classified as loss. Now the majority of our loss is from the few breaks we have, which is a fraction of what it used to be, and then this type of use. But we do, when these situations are brought to us, we try to get something that works for everyone.
Fred, with respect to meter reading, obviously, how big a task is it, and how far long-range planning would we have to get through to have automatic reading and the installation and cost of that? Because I can understand that, obviously I've been talking to different, and I think this is something right down the road where we can read it. Right now we read them every, 2 months, 3 months, billing cycle, but we can read them on a current real-time basis, and they can see these anomalies in the program, and they can cut it off right quick.
We actually have a proposal to do that, but that includes moving to one of the radio frequency reading devices.
Right.
If we could send, the meters we have now are actually equipped to do that. We just haven't turned that on. And if we could do that, I would want to research, but I know we do have the cost information to move to that type of system.
Right.
If we could read that signal once a day and detect that use and abnormal use, we could literally then dispatch a staff person out the next working day, and if we don't reach the person, tag the door, we detect. And that technology exists, and I believe we've actually metered enough homes that we'd have substantial penetration.
I think all that Larry indicated they needed, they just need to buy the software. The meters will do what we needed to do, we just need the software.
There's a tower, and it may be, I can have the information for us at the Finance Committee on Friday, because I know we actually have a write-up. I believe there's a capital improvement sheet as well in the capital improvements plan.
Yeah, I do understand the current meters, they are compatible with that technology. So in that particular case, you would definitely cut down these 3 occasions and these astronomical bills that people are getting. So
we're happy to bring that forward to council if there's a desire. I understand there are some concerns about these radio frequency devices.
It's something that needs to be socialized, but from a standpoint of practical standpoint, I think it's something we should take a look at at the Finance Committee.
Especially when you look at, as the Great Lakes Water Authority moves to, the authority works to Detroit, treating their sewage to the standards that it should be, and all of those are things that can drive our costs.
Anybody else?
One, on the February 28th, we have the Leap Year Winterfest. That's interesting. It sounds like a good event, I guess. Does this cost, how much does this cost us anything?
What's it costing us?
Yeah.
The fireworks are about 10,000, public safety, based on preliminary cost estimates, are about 23,000. It's being tied into, and I can have, I'll have a representative from Parks and Rec at the next meeting to go through. But that there's almost a carnival going on. There's ice, I believe there's ice, clowns, ice carving, wood carving.
It's a good community event.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, good. All right, then. This meeting is adjourned.
Mr. Davis is tonight.